Yeah, so we started in 2007 to fact check the 2008 presidential campaign. And I think what we saw then, and we see even much more now, is there's so much misinformation, not only spread by online and through newspapers and other things, but also made by the candidates themselves, that I think people really crave truthful, honest, objective information that they can trust. And so in America, there is a history of fact-checking around election time. So a campaign ad will come on and newspapers will write and say whether that's true or not. But there really wasn't a series of full-time fact-checkers who spend their whole lives from getting up to going to bed helping sort out fact from fiction for people. So we've been doing that since 2007. We've published 14,000 fact checks. You can see them all on Politifact.com. We've branched out now. We're not only covering presidential politics, but we're fact checking local mayors and governors. We're fact checking members of the media, especially those on TV. We have big audiences. And so we find that this is really a new form of journalism that helps, is really all aimed at helping readers and voters understand what their leaders are saying and whether or not it's true. What I would say is I think certainly that in politics, everyone is trying to win. They're expressing a viewpoint and they're trying to come up with facts to support that viewpoint. I don't know if it's people lying as much as people believing things that they want to be true. So at Politifact, we often stay away from the word lying and trying to figure out is someone purposefully deceiving or telling a falsehood. But what I think is happening is there is a win at all cost mentality a lot in politics, and as a result, I think you're seeing a lot of people say statements that aren't truthful to try to prove their point or win the election. And for us, we don't care who wins. We just want people to have the best information so that when they go to vote on election day, they'll be able to make the decision of who they think should represent them, with all the information that we can provide. That's a great example. Speech of a politician. Hillary Clinton gives a speech. What we do is we essentially get the transcript of that speech, we read it all the way through, and we create a list of things that we possibly could fact check. So in a 15-minute speech, there might be 1,500 words, but if you really boil it down, there might only be 4 or 5 things that we might be able to fact check. A lot of it's opinion or predictions or kind of value statements. I support this, or if you elect me, I'll be for that. Once we get that list narrowed down, what we do is we kind of look at each claim that we could fact check, and we ask ourselves a really simple, basic question. If an average person heard it, would they wonder, is that true or not? So there are a lot of times you'll see statements that, quite frankly, the average person doesn't really care about. So we'll kind of skip those. And so if we come to the conclusion that, yeah, I think people want to know if that's true or not, then we go and do our fact check. Our fact check process is the same. We've published now 14,000 fact checks. Every time we start by going to the campaign or the person who made the claim and say, where did you get your information from? Often when they respond, then we go, after that, we go and we kind of consult experts. We look for primary sources of information. We list all of that on our website so people can see every source of information that we used. And then we come up with a verdict. We call it a truthometer rating. And so we decide a statement is rated true, mostly true, half true, mostly false, false, or pants on fire, which is the worst one. You don't want that one. And so the process is the same every time. And that's really important for us because we need to be consistent because readers want to know that we're being objective and giving them the best information. And the easiest way for us to do that is to do the same process every time. Obviously, in the United States, we have it easier because we have such access to government records and statistics. I would start, one of the things we say at Politifact that I think any journalist can do is the idea that if a politician makes a statement, we believe it is incumbent on them to provide the information to verify it as true. So if someone says something, they should have the ability to provide information to back it up, to say, yes, this is true and here's why. If they don't, to us, that's a signal that this could be false. And certainly, maybe not false, but the public maybe shouldn't trust that information. So that's one thing I would say, is if you can't have access to information, make sure you're asking your elected leaders, where did they get their information from? And if they don't tell you, that is a sign in our minds that the information can't be trusted, because you can't verify it. The whole point of Politifact is not taking someone's word for it. And so we're asking not only the people who made the claim, but as many experts as we can to try to help us understand what the truth is. And so, yes, of course, it's easier when you have access to data, when you have access to primary research, but there are ways you can fact check even in cases when that doesn't exist. What we try to do, and I think this would be something that a lot of people should keep in mind, is you want to try to correct the record on the pieces of information that spread the furthest. So you're looking for, what I would say is, don't go looking for something that is false in a faraway corner of the media that maybe a lot of people haven't seen. Look for the opportunities to fact check things where a lot of people have heard that information and you think you can have an impact by correcting the record. At Politifact or anywhere in the world, as a fact checker, you can drive yourself crazy trying to correct all the misinformation that's out there. So I would really focus on the things that are most prominent. So whether that's spread on TV where there's a wider audience, or something that is gaining traction on social media that you can see it's been shared thousands of times or something like that. Those are the types of opportunities I think where fact checkers can have the biggest impact, rather than just like trying to, read. I'm sure if you can read, when it comes to propaganda, you can find it anywhere and you can fact check it. But I would save our bullets, so to speak, for the most important issues, especially in the ones that have the widest reach. One of the most typical things we see in American politics is politicians taking a factual claim or statistic, and distorting it. And so that's a case where they're using a fact and they're kind of bending it toward their purpose. So, since Barack Obama took office, we've lost X million number of jobs. Well, the number is probably right, but they're wrong to blame the President Obama. So we see a lot of that. I do think people want to hold their politicians accountable, and they should. And one of the best ways to do that is by measuring the record of what they said versus what they accomplished, and what they said versus the truth. I don't think you can find anyone, anywhere, politicians or otherwise, who would be telling 100% the truth. And the reason I say that is because it is difficult for anyone, if you're speaking for 2 hours or 4 hours a day, to get everything right. Probably in this interview I said something that's wrong. It happens. I think we should all acknowledge that. And the more we can, as a society, get away from, you said something that's false, you're bad, with, you said something that's false, just go ahead and say, oh, I'm sorry, that was wrong. Here's the right information. The more we can reward people for saying it's okay to be wrong, because everyone's wrong, I think the better off we'll be as a society. So no, I don't think there's ever going to be a scenario where a politician, you're going to be able to say they're 100% honest. And that's not because they're trying to be dishonest or trying to be honest. It's just because in speaking, especially when you're asked all kinds of questions on a daily basis, asked to weigh in all kinds of topics, there's no way you're going to get all your facts right. And I think we should acknowledge that, accept it, and then be willing to accept that it's also okay for people to correct the record, whether it's fact checkers or whether it's the politicians themselves. That helps improve democracy, gives people access to better, more objective, fair information, and then we can all make decisions, in the best way. All I want is, my goal for, if it was Brexit or another thing, is if everyone had the right information, whether they voted to remain or leave, didn't really matter to me. It's how do we make sure everyone, I don't want people voting one way because they had the wrong information, that's all. And so I want them to have the right information. I think we're making a small step in the United States. I think we're seeing this expand around the globe, and it's really amazing and awesome to see, but there's so much more room to grow, and I hope all journalists, in all parts of the world, incorporate fact-checking into what they do, because I think it's really valuable to readers, and it's important.